Mr. Cornyn, aye. Mr. Alexander, aye. Mrs. Hutchison, aye. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Aye. Mr. Wicker. Aye.
Are there any senators in the chamber wishing to vote or change their vote? If not, on this vote, the yeas are 94, the nays are 1. 3/5 of the senators duly chosen and sworn having voted in the affirmative, the motion is agreed to. Vote against. Senator from Tennessee.
Mr. President, I ask to speak as if in morning business.
Without objection.
Mr. President, later this week, the Senate will vote on a resolution to disapprove a Clean Air Act rule designed to limit the blowing of power plant pollution from one state to another. In my opinion, overturning the rule would throw the matter back to regulators, back to courts, back to lawsuits, and back to delay. Senator Pryor of Arkansas and I are introducing today Senate Bill 1815. We've sent it to the desk. It is bipartisan legislation that will provide what we believe is a better approach. And that approach is to enact the Clean Air Rule into law, but give utilities one additional year in which to comply with it. Our approach would provide certainty and cleaner air at the lowest possible cost to taxpayers. The motion to overturn the Clean Air Rule will be offered by the junior senator from Kentucky, Senator Paul. Tennesseans admire much about our Kentucky neighbors. We admire their bluegrass. We admire their basketball. We admire their distinguished United States senators. But Tennesseans don't want Kentucky's state income tax, and we don't want Kentucky's dirty air. And we know that our neighbors in North Carolina don't want Tennessee's dirty air blowing into North Carolina because they have told us that through lawsuits in the courts, which they have won. Air pollution blowing from one state into another makes our citizens sick, especially our younger Tennesseans and our older Tennesseans. Air pollution blowing from other states into our states is a job issue. Pollution makes our Great Smoky Mountains more like the Great Smoggy Mountains. We like to see our mountains, and we like for the 9 million visitors who come to visit us every year to stay a long time and to spend a lot of money, because that supports our schools and it supports our state revenue. And dirty air blowing into Tennessee from other states makes it harder for us to create jobs in yet another way. I remember 30 years ago when I was governor of Tennessee and the Nissan Corporation came to our state. The very first thing Nissan did when it came to Tennessee was to go down to the state air quality board and ask for an air quality permit in order to operate its paint plant. Fortunately, the air quality in the Nashville area was clean enough that Nissan could locate there. If Nissan hadn't been able to obtain an air quality permit to operate its paint plant, it would have been in Georgia or some other state. And the auto jobs which have come to Tennessee in the tens of thousands over the last 30 years would most likely have been in some other state. So dirty air blowing from Kentucky into Tennessee, or Tennessee into North Carolina, or from any state into another state, makes it harder for the recipient state, the communities, to get their air quality permits, and it makes it harder, for example, for us to say to Volkswagen and its suppliers, we can provide a home to you because our air is clean enough so that we can get our air quality permit. Mr. President, in 2005, the Bush administration first put into place the predecessor to the cross-state air pollution rule that we'll be voting on later this week. Federal courts found that the Bush rule was flawed in some technical respects and ordered the Environmental Protection Agency to write a new rule under which some now seek to overturn it on a vote this week by means of the Congressional Review Act. The Bush Clean Air Rule that was put in place in 2005 has now been there for 6 years. Many utilities have already taken steps to comply with it. The pollution standards in the new rule that we'll be voting on are about the same as those established in the 2005 Bush Rule. As an example of costs, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the nation's largest public utility, tells us that complying with the new rule, the one we'll be voting on, will cost its ratepayers between $1 and $2 a month. Mr. President, we often hear, and I'll have to say that a lot of those comments often come from our side of the aisle, that it is the job of Congress, not the bureaucrats and the courts, to write the clean air rules. The common sense legislation that Senator Pryor and I offer today is an opportunity for Congress to do its job in a way that will clean the air at the lowest possible cost to ratepayers. Mr. President, I thank the chair and I yield the floor.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Senator from Oregon.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding Rule 22, at 12 o'clock noon, Tuesday, November 8, 2011, the Senate proceed to executive session to consider calendar number 405 under the previous order.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that Senate proceed to executive session to consider calendar number 465, the nomination be confirmed with no intervening action or debate, that no further motions be in order to the nomination, that any statements related to the nomination be printed in the record, that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, and the Senate then resume legislative session.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate now proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 312, which was submitted earlier today.
Clerk will report.
S.Res. 312, commending the Girl Scouts of the USA on the special occasion of its 52nd annual convention, and commending the commitment of Girl Scouts of the USA to the mission of fostering the courage, and so forth.
Without objection, the Senate proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 313, introduced earlier today.
Clerk will report.
S.Res. 313, congratulating the University of Washington on its sesquicentennial and recognizing the contributions of the University of Washington to the state of Washington and the United States.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, and any related statements be printed in the record as if read.
Without objection.
I understand there are two bills at the desk due for a second reading.
Clerk will read the bills for the second time.
H.R. 1070, an act to amend the Securities Act of 1933 to require the Securities and Exchange Commission to exempt a certain class of securities from such act. H.R. 1965, an act to amend the securities laws to establish certain thresholds for shareholder registration and for other purposes.
I would object to any further proceedings with respect to these bills en bloc.
Objection having been heard, the bills will be placed on the calendar and under Rule 14.
I understand that there are two bills at the desk, and I ask for their first reading en bloc.
Without objection, clerk will report. Or read for the first time, I'm sorry.
H.R. 2930, an act to amend the securities laws to provide for registration exemptions for certain crowd-funded securities and for other purposes. H.R. 2940, an act to direct the Securities and Exchange Commission to eliminate the prohibition against general solicitation as a requirement for a certain exemption under Regulation D.
I now ask for a second reading en bloc, and I object to my own request en bloc.
Objection having been heard, there will now be a second reading on next legislative day.
I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate completes its business today, the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, November 8, 2011, that following the prayer and pledge, the Journal of Proceedings be approved to date, the morning hour be deemed expired, and the time for the two leaders be reserved for their use later in the day. That following any leader remarks, the Senate be in a period of morning business for 1 hour, with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each, with the time equally divided and controlled between the two leaders or their designees, the majority controlling the first half and the Republicans controlling the final half. And that following morning business, the Senate resume consideration of the motion to proceed to H.R. 674, the 3% Withholding Repeal Act post-cloture. Further, that at 12 p.m. the Senate proceed to executive session under the previous order. And that when the Senate resumes legislative session following the roll call vote on confirmation of the Wallach nomination, the Senate recess until 2:15 p.m. to allow for the weekly caucus meetings. And finally, that all time during adjournment, morning business, executive session, and recess count post-cloture on the motion to proceed to H.R. 674.
Without objection.
There will be a roll call vote at approximately 12:15 p.m. tomorrow on confirmation of the Wallach nomination. Additionally, we expect to begin consideration of H.R. 674 during tomorrow's session. If there is no further business to come before the Senate, I ask that it adjourn under the previous order.
Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
So the Senate's gavelled out. Today, members voted to move forward on a bill to repeal a requirement that the government withhold 3% of payments to contractors. More work on the measure expected tomorrow. Also possible this week, legislation offered by Washington Democrat Patty Murray, aiming to help veterans find jobs by giving tax breaks to businesses who hire them, as well as work on 2012 federal spending later in the week, and a resolution of disapproval offered by Texas Republican Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison on the FCC's net neutrality rule. You can follow the Senate live here on C-SPAN 2 when members gavel back in tomorrow. Tonight, a live interview with CBS News chief foreign correspondent Laura Logan, who